हेलो एंड वेलकम टू एमआई क्लासेस। मैं हूं आपका दोस्त, आपका भाई एमआई। माय नेम इज एम इरफत एंड स्टूडेंट्स लव टू कॉल मी एमआई। आई एम अ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट, CMA USA and CIMA, and with more than 15 years of teaching experience for costing and performance management, I have been involved with students not only in India but also internationally, exclusively for costing and performance management. I have trained thousands of students in this long teaching career. With that introduction,
I'm going to be your faculty for this entire cost management, right? There are different names by which we call it. We call it costing, we call it strategic cost management, performance evaluation, we call it by so many names. But overall, let me tell you, internationally, the syllabus of costing remains very constant. The evolution or the changes that is coming out in the syllabus is very small, minute tweaking of the syllabus to make it more internationally at sync with most other courses in the world. Alright, so this is the only changes which has happened. I am just taking you through the old syllabus and the new syllabus because a lot of people will tell you that the old syllabus was better, the new syllabus is better, and I don't know what not. And you get highly confused between what was there in the old and what is there in the new syllabus. Let me tell you, in old syllabus as well as new syllabus, broadly the content has remained the same. There has been slight tweaking here and there. For those of you who do not like mathematics so much, it is definitely a good news in the new syllabus because the stress on QT has reduced substantially. That is the major change. Otherwise, there is no such change that is against or that is detrimental to any one of yours interest. All right. Today being the first class, I am not going to teach you a lot today because on the first class generally I just teach for some time so that all of you get settled with the speed at which I am going to teach. With the English, because that's what is the medium of communication that we are going to use in this class. And from next day onwards, we are going to have a complete 3 hours lecture with just one small break of 5 minutes or 10 minutes as you decide. All right, we will give that liberty to you to decide as to how long the break should be. All right, but definitely not more than 10 minutes under any circumstances. How are we going to start the class? I will start the class very slowly, peacefully, and extremely conceptually. The idea is to understand the entire concept rather than running behind multiple questions. In costing, what is tested is not the questions but the concept behind the question. Let me tell you, if you are very confident with the concepts, questions cannot defeat you no matter how long or how small the questions are. It is the concept which is very important. And most of us, what we sit down and start doing is we buy one book, we buy another book, we buy third book, and we start solving more and more questions from those books, rather than spending lot of time understanding the concepts. Unfortunately, most of the publishers, I do not want to name them, most of the publishers, they have just one thing in their books: questions. Very few books, at least in India, have sat down and explained the concepts behind those questions. And that is why we also, as a student, when I was studying, most of you also would land up sitting down and solving questions after questions and after again questions, which I am sure is not the solution for it. The solution is you get down deeper and deeper into the concepts, understand why a certain thing is being done in a certain manner. Once you have these answers why a certain thing is done in a certain manner, I'm sure you will never have any confusion. Most of your confusion will just disappear. The second important thing which I want to tell you is costing of CA final looks like a separate thing. You have studied costing in your inter, and most of you think that the inter syllabus and the final syllabus are way too different, which is true, at least on the face of it. The inter syllabus looks very small now, at least when you look now. When you were there in inter, that itself was massively big, and final syllabus is altogether at a different level. That's what it appears to be. But let me tell you, there are many chapters of the CA inter syllabus that unless you have understood it in depth, you will struggle in CA final. Most of the time when you are struggling in CA final, you will think that I am not understanding CA final content. But trust me, you are actually not able to recollect or imagine your CA inter syllabus. Unless you are able to completely master your CA inter syllabus, the final syllabus is always going to trouble you. Will it trouble you in the whole question? Answer is no. It troubles you in very critical areas where conceptual knowledge is prerequisite. So what are we going to do? If I tell you go back to your CA inter syllabus and go ahead and revise everything, I'm sure none of you are going to do it. So we have to come up with a solution. The solution is very simple. Every topic that we are going to start, if I feel important that you must know the CA inter syllabus for understanding those topics, I'm going to go back to the CA inter syllabus and teach you that first to ensure your conceptual clarity. Once your concepts are very clear, I'm sure you will appreciate it, not immediately, but later in point you will start appreciating that yes, that recollection was very important, and it is helping me understand the final syllabus much more clearly. Especially topics like CVP analysis, relevant costing, transfer pricing, and then pricing decision, standard costing, budgeting. So these are topics where your basics needs to be strong. Once it is strong, I'm sure you will find these topics very interesting. All right. Any questions before I proceed? Okay. No question means no question. Yeah. Nothing asked means there is no question. But let me tell you, I want these 3 hours to be like little more interactive, so that I get to hear you, you get to hear me, and you don't land up sleeping, because 3 hours facing the computer continuously is going to be painful. Yes, it is going to be painful. We have to come up with certain way that it does not become so painful. When you are sitting in a classroom surrounded with other students, and even if you are attending online, it is a little better because there are people around you. You are in a kind of a situation where you most likely would not fall asleep. But when you are sitting alone at home and trying to learn early morning at 7 o'clock, it is painful, and it is going to be painful. All right. So best is that keep taking small breaks, come back and re-energize yourself so that you don't land up falling asleep. All right. If you don't have any question, I'll jump in and we will start right away. With regard to the language of the class, I hope all of you remember and are aware that we are going to use rather English as a medium of communication. It is only going to be used as a medium of communication and nothing else. But I understand a lot of languages, including Hindi. All right, perfectly. So you can always talk to me in whichever language you think you are comfortable. Hindi, I'm perfectly fine, right? So you can ask in case you think that okay, yeah, English may be a little difficult, because we are not here for an English education. We are here for a technical education. All right, and English is just going to be a medium of our communication. All right. So please do not hesitate in asking any question in any language of your choice, provided I understand them also. Yeah, Hindi is very comfortable with me. Fine, let me just take you through the 4 things that is important in costing that we need to learn. What are those 4 things? I will use the word costing rather than SCM and PE and all. Costing looks very cool. SCM and PE makes you feel scared. Yeah, as if something great out of the box is there. So under this, what are we going to study? So remember, there are different strategies of costing that we use for different objective. What are those strategies? What you have learned, something called absorption costing. So we are going to learn something called absorption costing. What is absorption costing? I'm going to tell you. I'm sure most of you know it, but basic presumption of my class is always that you have forgotten everything. That is a basic presumption. So even if you remember something selectively, my presumption is that you have forgotten everything, and I'm going to touch upon everything that is important and relevant for you to score in the exam. The second important thing, or the second strategy that we learn, is called marginal costing. Most of the chapters in your syllabus are divided either into marginal costing or absorption costing without naming it. That look, I am absorption costing. Look, I am marginal costing. It does not tell that look, I am marginal or I am absorption costing. But the strategy, the concepts that are used are from absorption costing and marginal costing only. The next important topic that we will touch upon is standard costing. And the last one, budgets. All right. Actually, budget should come first and then should come standard costing. I have written in this sequence. Technically speaking, budget should come first and then standard costing should come. If you want, I can just replace the position of these two topics. You may ask me why so. I will give you that answer at the right time. Rather, I will write it. That will be faster. Under budget, what are we going to learn? Under standard costing, what are we going to learn? Let me tell you, all these topics are very, very interesting. You may just have the initial glitch of starting with it, but once we have started with it, you will find them really very interesting, because we are not going to jump into questions directly. We are going to understand concepts under each of these topics and then go to questions. It will make your learning process much more smoother. Let's first begin with absorption costing. What is absorption costing? Absorption costing is the method of finding the total cost. How do we find the total cost? I will tell you broadly, but now you need to understand what are the topics wherein absorption costing or techniques or strategies are used. So there are topics called pricing decision, there is topic called costing of service sector. This topic has been moved partially to CA inter syllabus. Or you must have heard something called job costing, batch costing, all these areas where we use absorption costing. Those are not part of CA final syllabus, but reference are there in the final content also. Where are marginal costing used? Marginal costing is used what we call CVP analysis, cost volume profit analysis. In CVP analysis, we use it for relevant costing, we use it for the third topic. Anything you think where we use marginal costing, CVP analysis, relevant costing, transfer pricing. You may ask me, so why are you telling me all this? I'm telling you all this just to let you take home just one important concept, that we are not learning pricing decision, we are not learning costing of service sector, or we are not going to learn CVP, relevant costing, transfer pricing. What we are going to learn is what is absorption costing in detail and what is marginal costing in detail. Because once you have understood the complete gamut of what absorption costing is and what marginal costing is, you will find that CVP analysis is just one part of marginal costing. Relevant costing is just one extension of the same concept. There is nothing new that you are going to learn in relevant costing, just a same extension of the same marginal costing concept. Similarly, transfer pricing is going to be just an extension of what we are going to learn in marginal costing. So I don't want you to break your thought process into so many different chapters. I want your thought process only to be divided into those 4 important broad concepts. Once your thought process is synced with these 4 topics, your entire understanding will become very, very crystal clear. The idea is to clear your understanding of the different strategies of costing rather than different chapters of costing. We are not going to look upon chapter just like that. First, lot of time we are going to spend on understanding these strategies or these concepts. All right. The third one, under budget, we are going to learn something called functional budget. All right. What are function budget? Sales budget, production budget, yes, consumption budget, purchase budget, cash budget, all these together is called functional budgets. Once we have understood functional budget, it will help us understand everything in one of the most confusing chapter, that is what our students feel initially, at least before we start the topic, standard costing. So in standard costing, we are going to learn everything what we are also going to cover in functional budget. Only thing is, in budget we are going to find out the only concentrate on the budget part of it. In standard costing, we are going to concentrate on the variance part of it. Let me just try to connect every topic for you. All right. So here we are going to learn how to calculate variances. Of course, all of you know it is there in your CA inter syllabus as well. Now, let me just connect everything for you. So if you look at all the topics that we have written so far, we have absorption costing, marginal costing, budgets, and standard costing. Absorption costing and marginal costing are very closely connected to each other. Only difference is marginal costing is used for decision making. Generally, what kind of decision? Some of the things I will tell you which may not be technically correct. But if you think like that, it will make your understanding little more clear. So don't come back to me and say, this is not technically perfectly right. I know, but still I will say something, because sometimes I want to just cut you off from the technical part of it and make you understand, so that your conceptual understanding becomes a little more clear. That's all I will try to do. So don't correct me technically, even if I am sometimes very minuscule wrong. Or let me tell you, marginal cost is used for decision making. What kind of decision? So it is used for short-term decision. Whenever it says short-term decision, in your mind, just think that one time only. Just think one time only, you are never going to go wrong. Just think whether it is 1 time, 2 time, 3 time, in your mind, just think it is going to be just one time decision. That's it. Next time, whether it is going to happen or not happen, I don't care, I don't know also. So while we are solving every question related to marginal costing, in our mind, we are just thinking that it is going to be just one time short-term decision. Next, when we are looking at absorption costing, think that we are not going to change it frequently and regularly. It's going to be just fixed, and it will remain fixed for a substantially longer period of time. For example, go back to your childhood when you bought Maggi. So every day Maggi price kept changing, or for many years Maggi price remained at 10 rupees. So if you recollect, Maggi price remained 10 rupees for many years. It did not change. Very lately, I think from 10 rupees it became 12 rupees. So when you look at absorption costing, think about long-term decision. Just think that it must be about long-term things, or just think long-term. How many years? I don't know, but long-term. Definitely not one-time order, definitely not 1 year. It has to be more than 1 year, and definitely not one-time issues. Means regularly I'm going to do or deal at such prices. For example, fixing a selling price of the product. For example, I am a company, I need to fix selling price of my biscuit, Good Day biscuit I am making. If you remember, Good Day biscuit also prices did not change substantially. It was like way back it started at 6 rupees, now it is 10 rupees for many years. So what are these pricing? These are long-term pricing which does not change every now and then. So whenever we are looking at long-term pricing which we are not going to change, we are talking about absorption costing. How to identify a question of marginal costing and absorption costing, I will tell you, because both will confuse you. You will find it difficult to identify whether the question is about marginal costing or the question is about absorption costing. This is the major struggle. While teaching, you will not show these problems. Why? I will tell you. Because before we take up a question, in your mind, you know which chapter we are doing. So the moment you know which chapter we are doing, your thought process is synced to that chapter. Suppose I am doing absorption costing. You know I am doing absorption costing. Your thought process are synced in that line. When we do question from marginal costing, again confusion will not happen, because you certainly know this is a marginal costing question. There's no doubt about it. But the same problem or the same solution is not there in exam. In exam, every question is mixed up. You do not have any clue as to which question is from which topic, because it's all going to be mixed up. In fact, marginal costing question can have concepts of absorption costing and vice versa. So you need to be very clear about how to identify a question as marginal costing or as absorption costing. That is very critical. We are going to spend good amount of time in this. The next one, budgets. What are we going to do in budgets? We are going to do everything in budget. Every types of budgets we are going to learn, because unless we have understood budgets clearly, we are not going to understand standard costing. Now, interconnection, you understand. When we do a product launch, before product launch, what do? We do something called budgeting. So before product launch, before starting to manufacture a product, or before beginning of any year, we prepare something called budgets. Once we have prepared budgets, the question is, what budgets are we going to prepare? Answer is, practically we prepare every budget wherein money is expected to come in or money is expected to go out, whether it is related to purchases, sales, manufacture, consumption, or salary, wages, advertisement, marketing. Every budgets are prepared by a company in real life scenario. But for learning purposes, we don't have those budgets. We have very basic function budgets, which are 5 in number. These are the only 5 budgets that we need to prepare. Now, sometimes to prepare budgets, you will need marginal costing concept. There are many questions wherein budgets cannot be prepared unless you know marginal costing concept in detail. So to understand budgets, you need to understand marginal costing. That is certainly yes. Now, so budgets we have prepared at the beginning of the period. Fine. During the period, we have done certain absorption costing. We have taken certain short-term decisions. We have taken certain one-time decisions. We have lived the entire year, manufactured, sold, produced, earned profit, all that we have done. At the end of the year, what do? So understand, at the beginning of the year, we did something called budgets. And during the year, we produced goods which are for long term. We made decisions which are short term. We took one-time orders. We have completed the order, all that we have done during the period. And at the end of the period, we prepare our P&L account. One costing P&L account if the company prepares, and one normal P&L account, financial P&L account, definitely every company has to prepare. So suppose the company has prepared costing P&L account. So it ascertains its costings profit. Now in the beginning of the year, when they had prepared their budgets, they must have visualized certain profits that it would earn during the period. And during the period, they did this, they did this. And at the end of the period, they have prepared their costing P&L account to understand how much profit they have actually been able to earn for the period or for the year if they are preparing. Now, whatever they had planned and whatever reality has happened, they want to introspect to see what my planning was and what my actual reality has happened at the end of the period, to analyze whether it is in sync with my planning or not. If it is in sync with planning, awesome. If it is not in sync with planning, then the company must find out the reasons for those deviations. For example, the company had planned to sell 100,000 units, 1 lakh units. In actual reality, the company has sold maybe more than 1 lakh units or less than 1 lakh units. The question is, what is the company going to do if there is a deviation? The company must find out the reason. If the sales is more, still they should find out the reason. If the sales was less, still the company should find out the reasons to plan for the future. Similarly, company had expected to earn a profit of suppose 50,000, and in actual reality they earned more than 50,000 or less than 50,000. The company at the end of the period must spend good amount of time to find out why the profit differed and who is responsible or who is accountable for this deviation in the profitability of the company. You may be wondering that why should the company introspect if the profits have increased during the period? Answer is, in both increase as well as decrease, the company must introspect to plan for its future better. For example, sales increased. Should the company investigate? Yes. But we don't call it investigation, because investigation is a word which is used generally when there is a fraud. So in standard costing, we do not investigate, we introspect, all right, or we analyze. That's the best word, and that's why we call it analyze, not investigate or introspect or any other word, because it's not fraud. So first, budgets, like I mentioned. Once we have learned budgets, we are going to understand absorption costing, marginal costing, because that is what we are going to use during the period. And then at the end of the year, we have costing profit and loss account prepared, and we are going to compare our budgets with reality. What is reality? Costing profit and loss account is the reality. To find out what? To find out deviations. Why do we find out deviations? To plan for the future better. In which topic do we find out these deviations? Those topics, or that topic is called standard costing. So I hope you have understood the interconnectivity between everything. So budgets, then absorption marginal, and then we are going to look into standard costing. Practically, a company goes through these channels. Practically, a company goes through these 4 stages in its entire year. All right. I hope you have understood it. Let's go to the next one. The next thing. What is the next thing? 1 minute break. That's the next thing. Yeah. Before for you to ask any question in case you want. Otherwise, I'll proceed with certain basics. Like I said, I will not teach you very long class. I'm going to just teach you basics today. And then from next class onwards, we are going to talk about in detail. Yeah. So question, if you have any. No questions at all? Oh, wow. I hope you have got a notebook with you. All of you have got a notebook with you, and a pen, and a calculator, and what else you have carried today? Pen, calculator, notebook, and nothing else is required. That's it. And material will be updated alive in the application, and you should be able to access it through that. Let's get started with our first basics that we are going to do today. Since you have no questions at all, fine. We are going to start with the basics of CVP or marginal costing. Let's write a question. We are going to use this question for entire understanding of this topic. So first, like I mentioned, we are going to start everything from the basics only. Once basics are consolidated, we will take up questions. Let's write this question. Particulars. First, under particulars, we are writing under year 1 percentage per unit total. This is very, very important concept to understand the entire CVP. All right. So please pay a lot of attention, understand everything that we are doing today, so that you are able to appreciate the entire CVP topic, where all we are going to use what we are going to study today. We are going to use in entire CVP analysis, where we are talking about decision. We are going to use in make or buy decision. We are going to use in relevant costing. We are going to use in transfer pricing. So these so many topics we are going to use what we are going to learn just now. All right. So first, let's talk about sales. From sales, what do we subtract? So we subtract sales minus variable cost. What do we get? We get contribution. All of you know this. Still, like I said, I will keep repeating. We have contribution. From contribution, we subtract fixed cost and we get profit. All of us know this. Now, let's assume my selling price per unit is 100 rupees and my variable cost is 60 rupees. So how much contribution we are getting? We are getting 40 rupees as our contribution. And let's assume my total fixed cost. Let's assume our total fixed cost is how much? It is $40,000. Sorry, 40,000 rupees. So in marginal costing, first thing, do we write fixed cost per unit? Answer is we do not calculate fixed cost per unit under marginal costing. We just do not. We treat fixed cost as period cost. What is period cost? What is product cost? I will keep telling you over a period of time. So first, fixed cost per unit we do not write. Now, year 1 details are given. Year 2 details are not given. So remember, under fundamentals of CVP analysis or fundamentals of marginal costing, there are certain assumptions that we always consider. For example, you have learned something called law of demand and supply. But law of demand and supply works under certain assumptions. Similarly, CVP analysis also works under certain assumptions. Question is, what are those assumptions for CVP analysis? So the first assumption, if nothing is mentioned in the question, selling price per unit remains same year on year if nothing is mentioned. Means if selling price of year 1 is given and year 2 it is not given, assume it is going to be same, because that is a basic fundamental assumption under CVP. Similarly, if nothing is mentioned, variable cost per unit remains same if nothing is mentioned. If something is mentioned, there is no question of assumption. All right. Now, if nothing is mentioned, the contribution per unit remains same. Very, very important concept. Keep listening to me, because in bigger question, all these will be tested. You will be asked to calculate for year 2 and year 1 data will be given. You will keep hunting, where is year 2 data? So year 2 data is not required, because fundamental assumptions of CVP says that if nothing is mentioned, it remains constant. Alright? Now, so we have got year 1 details and copied year 1 details to year 2 because nothing is mentioned in the question. Let's assume in year 1 we have sold 1000 units, and in year 2 I have sold 1200 units. Now, what will be total sales of year 1? 100 rupees multiplied by 1000. We have 100,000. What will be total variable cost? 60 multiplied by 1000. We have 60,000 as a total variable cost. And how much is the contribution? We have 40,000 as contribution. And how much is our total fixed cost? We have taken our total fixed cost as 40,000. So we have 40,000 as total fixed cost. How much is our profit? So in year 1 our profit is 0. When our profits is 0, we understand we are at break even point. All of you understand this. Quite simple. Come to year 2. So in year 2, my fixed cost per unit will be not applicable. You may ask me, sir, by looking at this, how did I know whether I am doing marginal costing or absorption costing? Remember, in any question or in any computation, if contribution has been highlighted separately, it is a marginal costing question, unless the question is trying to confuse you with something. Alright, so if you see contribution written separately, by default, understand it is a marginal costing question. You may quickly ask me, sir, how will I understand if it is an absorption costing question? So in absorption costing, first thing, contribution will not be mentioned separately. Second important point is fixed cost will be mentioned on a per unit basis. Somewhere in the question you will see fixed cost per unit is this. So the moment you see fixed cost per unit given in the question, it is an absorption costing question. Alright, so basic difference, understand, if contribution is highlighted separately, it is talking about marginal costing, and if fixed cost per unit is highlighted separately, then it is an absorption costing question. These are very, very big hints in the question. All right, and you need to understand those hints. Coming to the next one. Year 2. So we have 100 units, 1200 units into 100. We have 120,000, which is my total sales. And how much is my total variable cost going to be? So it is 60 multiplied by 1200. When you do, it is 72,000. How much is my contribution going to be for in year 2? My contribution is 48,000. How much is the fixed cost? Nothing is mentioned. Again, assumptions. What is the assumption? It remains constant. And how much is it going to be? So it's going to be 40,000. And how much is my profit? 8,000 is my profit of year 2. Now, in entire CA final syllabus, we follow something called total approach. We follow something called incremental approach. What is incremental approach is what we call it as difference here. All these points are important. Please keep focusing. In the difference, we are only taking from a total angle. How much is the difference in sales in year 1 and year 2? My difference is 20,000. And since it is a better difference, my sales are increasing. We call it positive difference. My difference in variable cost is how much? 12,000. And how much is the profit difference? Profit difference will come later. First, contribution difference is how much? 8,000. We are just subtracting this and this. 48 minus 40,000. We have a positive favorable difference of 8,000. How much is my fixed cost? So incremental fixed cost is 0. All right. Now, Remember, incremental fixed cost is 0, so incremental contribution is always going to be equals to incremental profit. Very basic, very important. Incremental contribution is always going to be equals to incremental profit. But to confuse you, question will tell you profits. They will not talk about contribution. You will comfortably be able to reach till contribution, and after that you will be like, fixed cost details are not mentioned. What do I do? So if nothing is mentioned, incremental fixed cost is always equals to 0. Alright. So remember, incremental contribution will always be equals to incremental profit. Sounds basic but very important. I want all of you to write what we have written so far. Alright, I will just stop for 1 minute because I want everyone to write this, because in today's basic concept lecture and tomorrow's first part, basic concept lecture, we are going to take this question as a standard or as a fundamental to understand entire basics of CVP analysis. So 1 minute you have, please write this question. Done? Good. Now, based on this, we are going to understand the concepts. First concept. First thing is, we are never going to memorize neither the concepts nor the formulas. We are going to understand it. That is the first logic. We are not going to spend time in memorizing things. Alright, we are going to understand or spend time in understanding concepts. Fine. The first thing is PV ratio or contribution ratio. Let's write that. PV ratio or contribution ratio. What is PV ratio or contribution ratio? All of you know the formula. In case you have doubt, we have formula: contribution per unit divided by selling price per unit, or we can write it as total contribution divided by total sales. Will the answer be same if I use the other formula? Answer is naturally the answer will be same. Please don't get restless. Like I mentioned, I am going to take you through very basics with just one presumption that you have forgotten everything. Why do I presume this? Because by the time you have passed your CA inter and by the time you are going to write your CA final, there is a big gap. In that big gap, it is quite likely that you may forget lot of things. So my presumption is you have forgotten, and that's how I always am going to teach you. All right. So if you remember something, great. If you do not remember, it's okay. Now in 200, of course, because it has to be denoted in percentage. This is the first formula which all of you are aware of. Formula number 2 for same PV ratio. So this is formula number 1 under this. This is formula number 2. But before I get into formula number 2, why is the formula like this? Contribution by selling price into 100. Why not something else? So to understand this, you need to understand how ratio works. Ratio means it talks about relationship. All right. Ratio is nothing but relationship. Relationship between what? Relationship between a numerator and a denominator. You may ask me, sir, why are you going to so basics? These basics are not important for immediate use, but for entire costing, what we are going to study over a period of 1.5 months, these are very, very important. And I want to cover all this right at the inception. So you look at ratios. Ratios means relationship. Relationship between what? Relationship between two numbers, a numerator and a denominator. If the relationship is very strong, the number whatever you get will have a very strong meaning. Its interpretation will be good. But if the relationship is very weak, then the interpretation of it is not going to be very factual. It is going to be, interpretation is also going to become little weaker. Example, if you look at sales and if you look at entire income statement or P&L account, you will find that the most important figure in the entire P&L account is sales. And all the other items, most of the items are dependent directly or indirectly on sales only. For example, gross profit. It is dependent on many things, but the most important thing on which gross profit depends is sales. Similarly, net profit. The most important thing on which net profit depends is sales. So can I say gross profit depends upon sales, net profit depends upon sales? Can I also say my variable cost also depends upon sales? If my sales are increasing, variable cost will increase. If my sales is decreasing, variable cost will also decrease. Can I also say that my contribution also depends upon sales? Because if sales are higher, contribution is going to be higher. If sales are lower, contribution is also going to be lower. If we can say this, then we need to understand one point here. What is the point? The point is that my gross profit formula, gross profit percentage is equals to gross profit divided by sales. Why? Because gross profit most importantly depends upon sales. And this relationship has to be denoted in a percentage. And by default, percentage should be between 0 to 100 or 1 to 100. It should ideally not exceed 100%. So my gross profit will always be lower than sales, and that is why the formula is like this and not sales by gross profit. So what is the relationship in this formula? Gross profit depends most importantly on sales. That is why the formula is gross profit divided by sales. Similarly, can I say net profit also most importantly depends upon sales? So can I say net profit divided by sales into 100? Because net profit most importantly depends upon sales. If you want to take that logic, we will take that logic in entire other understanding. What is the other understanding? Does contribution also depends upon sales? Answer is yes. Contribution also depends upon sales. So can I say the formula contribution divided by sales? Answer is yes. And that is why the formula is contribution divided by sales. In that terminology, can I also say that my variable cost also depends upon sales? So the formula should be variable cost divided by sales multiplied by 100. Answer is yes, we can say this, because variable cost will increase if sales are increasing. Variable cost will decrease if sales are decreasing. When I say sales, I am not referring to selling price per unit. I am referring to quantity. Whenever any question says sales have increased, do not presume in your mind that selling price has increased. Not at all. It only means that the number of quantities sold have increased or have decreased, not the selling price unless specifically mentioned. You may ask me, sir, why? The first thing I told you, basic assumptions under CVP, that selling price per unit does not change. Variable cost per unit does not change unless specifically mentioned in the question itself. Next one. What is the sales percentage? If some question says what is the sales percentage, this is a very funny ratio but very, very important, and here is where most people do not get the idea. So sales ratio can be written as sales divided by sales into 100. You may say, sir, this is so funny. Yes, it is funny, but this is what most people forget to understand. When sales ratio is equals to sales divided by sales into 100, means this ratio will always be equals to 100%. It can never change. Now, why it can not change? Because if selling price per unit is increasing, numerator will increase, denominator will also increase 100%. If number of units sold is increasing, then also it will be same. If selling price per unit is decreasing, then also it will always be same. So sales ratio is always equals to 100%. It never changes under whatever circumstances whatsoever. Alright. Now, if you have understood this, we are going to use this for little more of our discussion. The next formula for PV ratio is equals to 100% minus variable cost ratio. Question is, what is 100%? Just now I told you sales ratio is the only ratio which is going to remain 100% under every circumstances. So what is this 100%? It is nothing but sales percentage, because we know sales percentage is always going to be 100%. Why so? Because sales percentage means sales divided by sales into 100. Now, if you have understood this, let's go back and fill certain things. What will be sales percentage for year 1? 100%. For year 2, for whatever year, for whichever price, increase, decrease, sales ratio is always 100%. Let's calculate variable cost ratio. Variable cost divided by sales into 100. So it is 60%. How much is my contribution ratio? 40%. Fixed cost per unit we don't calculate, so fixed cost ratio also does not come. Now, why there is nothing called fixed cost divided by sales? That can also happen. It is not possible. Why? Because I told you there should be some relationship between numerator and denominator to become a ratio. Fixed cost has no relationship with sales, because even if sales is zero, fixed cost will happen. Sales are increasing, sales are decreasing, selling prices are changing, fixed cost will not respond. It will remain constant. So fixed cost does not have any relationship with sales. That is why there is no ratio called fixed cost divided by sales into 100. There is no such formula because there is no relationship. Alright. Similarly, year 2 sales ratio will always remain 100%. What is the variable cost ratio? 60 divided by 100, we get 60%. What is my contribution ratio? It is 40%. So we learned one thing here. What? Contribution ratio calculation. How did we calculate? 100% minus variable cost. The other formula is contribution divided by sales into 100. All of you are aware, I am sure. Let's go to formula number 3. PV ratio. What is the other formula? Difference in profit divided by difference in sales. Difference in profit divided by difference in sales. Here where most people go wrong, if the profits are negative, we have to minus it, and then negative profit we have to keep it as negative. Minus minus will become plus. All right, so remember this important mistake, what we land up doing every time. So difference in profit divided by difference in sales. This is the third formula for your PV ratio. The last formula for your PV ratio comes from another formula called profit. Profit is equals to margin of safety into PV ratio. So this is the formula which I will teach you later. So I'm not going to teach you the fourth formula now. Fourth formula is a derivation of some other formula which we will learn separately later. I want all of you to write this formula, then I am going to write basic concepts about these formulas. I am sure all of you have, if you have not already written, just take another half a minute to write these formulas. One very important thing, while I am teaching, do not write anything. I will give you sufficient time to copy whatever I am writing in the class. But while I am teaching, please do not waste your time in writing anything, so that your focus is completely on understanding concepts rather than copying notes. Copying notes is not the greatest idea, at least in my class. I want you to understand concepts, not just copy notes, because at the end of every class I will pass on this material to you wherever I am writing. All right, so I will pass on to you. You can always make copy notes from here, but in the class please spend time to listen to me and understand every smallest minuscule things that I am going to talk about. 30 seconds, please write it. All right, once you have done, let's go to the next important concepts that you need to learn here. Important points to remember. Point number A. I will call it PV ratio or contribution ratio, both remains the same. PV ratio or slash contribution ratio First point, point number A, PV ratio is assumed to remain constant year on year. So first fundamental assumption is, if PV ratio is mentioned for year 1 and there is no information given in the question for year 2, don't keep searching what is the PV ratio for year 2. It is going to remain constant because that is a fundamental assumption. Second, does PV ratio change? Answer is yes, it may change also. But if it is changing, it will give you some information directly or indirectly. The question is what information? So point number B, it changes only under the following circumstances. Under this subpoint number 1, when selling price per unit changes. Remember, selling price per unit changes. Point number 2, when variable cost per unit changes. All right. Point number 3, when both selling price and variable cost, all right, per unit, variable cost per unit have changed. But not in the same proportion. Same proportion means variable cost has changed by 10% and selling price has also changed by 10%. Then ratio will remain same. How and all I will show you. So when both have changed but not in the same proportion. Remember, I am using the word proportion, or you can say proportion or percentage or percentage. Same proportion or same percentage. For your own learning, but not in the same amount. I will just remove this. This is enough for you. I will take you through that in separate question. But for now, understand, when selling price per unit or variable cost per unit have changed but not in the same proportion or same percentage. Question is, if it changes in the same proportion or same percentage, PV ratio will not change. How and all I will tell you. Point number C. PV ratio or contribution ratio changes under the following circumstances we have already written. So PV ratio or contribution ratio does not change with the change in sales. When it says sales have changed, what has changed? Selling price or sales quantity? Answer is sales quantity only. We do not assume selling price per unit to change. So PV ratio does not change with the change in sales, which means changes in volume of sales or changes in quantity sold. In bracket, and not this selling price per unit. I want you to write all these points, very, very important for all essay questions that we are going to touch upon. So first point, let us recollect important points to remember. First is PV ratio is assumed to remain constant. You have been given last year PV ratio, do not worry. We are going to use the same PV ratio for this year calculation. Next, PV ratio, does it change? Yes, it changes. Under what circumstances? Under three circumstances. First, when selling price per unit has changed. Next, when variable cost per unit has changed. Third, when both selling price and variable cost have changed, but they have not changed in the same proportion or percentage. And the last one, point number C, PV ratio does not change with the change in sales. Question will say sales have changed, sales have increased, sales have decreased, which means only the volume of sales have changed or the quantity sold, number of units have changed, not the selling price per unit. Let's come to point number 3 here. This is important. When both have changed. For example, my variable cost is $3, 3 rupees. I'm so sorry. I may by confusion may keep telling you dollars and rupees. Assume everything I'm talking about is rupees only. All right, I'm not talking about dollars, but I keep using because I teach some of the foreign courses also. Of course, I teach only costing in all foreign courses. So I teach CPA, I teach CMA USA. So dollar goes rupees, rupees goes dollar. So that confusion I always. Similarly, I may land up using the word million and billion instead of talking about lakhs and crores. So just ignore. But yes, it is important that you also understand millions and billions, because of late, even CA final questions have been referred to as millions and billions. I hope all of you know millions and billions, but practically when we start solving, confusion starts. So let us be familiar with certain foreign terminologies also, million, billion, and how these work also. All right. So, but whenever I confuse rupees and dollars, just ignore it. We are talking about rupees only. Fine. So comes to next. So we have 3 rupees and we have, how much is the selling price? Selling price is 5 rupees. All right. Into 100, when we do, we get how much percentage? So we are calculating PV ratio. Is it? No, we are calculating variable cost ratio. So 3 rupees is the variable cost and 5 rupees is the selling price. Into 100, we get how much? 60% as our variable cost ratio. But like I said, if it changes in the same proportion, does ratio changes? Answer is ratio will not change. How? For example, my original price is 3 rupees, variable cost, original variable cost is 3 rupees and original selling price is 5 rupees. And both are changing by 10%. So will the relationship change? Answer is no, not at all. It will become 3.30 and this will become 5.50. Into 100, if you do, you will still get 60%. You will still get 60%. All right. But if it is changing by an amount, for example, $3 becomes $4 and $5, 3 rupees becomes 4 rupees and 5 rupees becomes 6 rupees. For example, original price is 3 rupees and 5 rupees. And I add 1 rupee on both numerator and denominator. Will the relationship change? Answer is 100% yes, because it is not changing by same proportion or percentage, it is changing by same amount. When it changes by same amount, 100% it will change. For example, 3 by 5 was 60%, but 4 by 6 will not be same percentage at all. How much is it? So 4 divided by 6, it is 66.67%. All right. So remember this point, very, very important. So it will not change when it is changing by the same proportion. That is why I have used have changed but not in the same proportion, because if it changes in the same proportion, it will remain same. All right. Now coming to the next, what is the formula? Formula we already have learned, contribution divided by sales or total contribution divided by total sales. Let us solve question number 1. How to calculate, compute PV ratio in the given question. What is the given question? Whatever question we have written above. So first one, for year 1. All right, we are calculating for year 1 now. What is the formula? Contribution per unit divided by selling price per unit. How much was the contribution per unit? $40 and selling price was $100. We have got 40%. This is pretty simple. All right. Now the other way I told you, total contribution divided by total sales. Total contribution divided by total sales. First class of every topic will be only basics, only basics. All right, I will explain you once again. So total contribution divided by total sales. So if you look at this formula, it is nothing but contribution per unit multiplied by number of units is called total contribution, and selling price per unit multiplied by number of units is called total sales, and 1000 since it is in multiple, it can get cancelled. So my relationship again comes back to the original number. So whether you calculate on a total basis, whether you calculate on a per unit basis, relationship which is denoted in percentage will not change. And that is the logic why in year 2 my relationship does not change with the change in the number of units. Understand again, what is the total contribution of year 2? 40 multiplied by 1200. And what is the total sales in year 2? 100 multiplied by 1200. And since both are in multiples, this and this can get divided. And that is my ratio in year 1 and ratio in year 2 does not change. I hope you are able to understand. Similarly, the basic presumption is contribution per unit does not change. Selling price per unit does not change. When both are not changing, my relationship will also not change. It will remain constant at 40%. I hope you have understood this. Very, very basic points. I know some of you may be running out of patience. Why is sir going so deep? Answer is anything which is not important for you at all, I will not touch upon those areas. If they are just not important at all. But even if they are 5% important, I am going to touch upon, because that 5% lack of knowledge will kill your entire big essay question, because you will not be able to understand it. I want you not to take all this lightly and take it very, very seriously and feel that it is very important for you to know. And I will prove you that all these informations will be used in essay questions that we are going to learn. Now, one question to explain point number C. Let me just explain you in little more detailed. All right, how does a ratio behave? Let's take one small ratio, 2 by 5. All right, let's look at that ratio. So, understanding ratio. From this example, we will understand how ratio behaves. Is it important? Yes, it is important, because long questions will need this information from you. How does a ratio behave? So if you look at the original ratio, I will make you write a conclusion also. If you look at the original ratio, my original ratio is how much? Is 2 by 5. Suppose, let me take this number. Earlier we took 3 by 5. 2 by 5. So 2 by 5 into 100 is how much? So it is 40%. All right. Just we have taken a ratio. It is 40%. Now, one more ratio I want to take. One more original ratio I want to take. 5 by 2. This ratio also I want to take. So 5 by 2, we are not denoting it in percentage, we are just denoting in number. So 5 by 2 is equals to how much? 2.50. Suppose this also we do not denote in percentage, how much will it come? It will come 0.40. So we have got two ratios. All right. Now, one ratio is less than 1, it is lesser than 1, one ratio is greater than 1. Now, since you have asked this question, let me clarify this because it is important again. One ratio is less than 1, one ratio is more than 1. Now remember, any ratio, if ratio is less than 1, if ratio is less than 1, if you add a constant number to both numerator and denominator, remember, if ratio is less than 1 and if you add a constant number both to numerator and denominator, what will happen to the ratio? The ratio will improve. Ratio will improve. Value will improve. Example, take up calculator, original ratio is 2 by 5. We add a constant number, so 2 by 5. We add a constant number both to numerator and to denominator. what will happen to the ratio? Ratio will become 3/6, and this value will become how much? It will become 0.50 from how much? 0.40. What is happening to the ratio? Ratio is improving. Ratio is improving. But if the original ratio is less than 1, if the original ratio is less than 1, and if you subtract a constant number both to numerator and denominator, what will happen? Ratio will worsen now. It will become bad compared to the original ratio. Original ratio was 2/5. I have subtracted one constant number both to numerator and denominator. My new ratio will become 1/4, and 1/4 is equals to 0.25. Alright? So remember, if the ratio is less than 1, if a constant number is added both to numerator and denominator, ratio improves. If a constant number is subtracted, ratio worsens. Likewise, if the ratio is greater than 1, alright, if the ratio is greater than 1, if a constant number is added both to numerator and denominator, it is added both to numerator and denominator, what will happen to the ratio? Ratio will just behave opposite. Here added, ratio improved. Here added, ratio will worsen. Here ratio, here I was talking about minus. When the ratio is greater than 1, if it is added, ratio will worsen. For example, my original ratio was 5/2. I have added 1 to numerator and 1 to denominator. My new ratio becomes 6/3. And what is the new value? It becomes 2. And what was the original value? It was 2.5. If you check, it was 2.5. So from 2.5, it is becoming 2, means it is worsening. Similarly, next point, if my ratio was more than 1 or greater than 1, if a constant number is subtracted both to numerator and to denominator, my ratio will improve. So ratio improves. How? For example, my ratio was 5/2. I am subtracting one constant number both to numerator and denominator. What is my ratio becoming? 4/1. And what is 4/1? 4. So my ratio from 2.5 has become 4 now. So ratio has improved. I hope all of you have understood this. So if a constant number is added or subtracted, how will ratio behave depends upon what is the original ratio. It will not behave in the same fashion. It importantly depends upon how was the original ratio. If the original ratio was greater than 1, then it will behave differently. And if the original ratio was less than 1, then it will behave differently. Alright, comfortable? Now, next point, to a ratio, if we are adding a particular percentage or subtracting a particular percentage, ratio does not change. It just does not change. How and all, I will show you. But before that, let's write conclusion. Let's write conclusion. What is the conclusion? If the original ratio, I want you to remember this every time. Original ratio is greater than 1. I see lot of people getting confused with this sign and this sign. That is why I use this sign, greater than 1. Alright, and if a constant number is added to numerator and denominator, both, what will happen? Ratio, keep telling to yourself, ratio worsens. If it is greater than 1 and if a constant number is subtracted both to numerator and denominator, what happens to ratio? ratio improves. If it is less than 1 and if a constant number is added to both numerator and denominator, ratio improves. Means it will become better. And same thing if it is less than 1 and if a constant number is subtracted, ratio worsens. Alright? I hope all of you have written. Let's talk about proportion or percentage. Let's talk about that. If a constant number is added, subtracted, ratio will change. If a constant percentage is added or subtracted, will the ratio change? Answer is not at all. It will never change. For example, my original ratio is suppose 5/2 or 2/5. We are taking both, less than 1 and more than 1. And a constant percentage is added, for example 10%. When I say 5 plus 10%, 10% of what? 10% of 5 only. So it means 10% of 5. And here it means 10% of 2. Alright? Similarly here also, plus 10% of 2 plus 10% of 5. So if you look at it, it will become 5 plus 10% means 0.50, and this will become 2 plus 0.20. So how much will it become? 5.50 divided by 2.20. How much it becomes? So it is still how much? 2.50 only. Earlier also it was 2.50. Now this one will be how much? This one will be same thing. It will be 2.20 divided by 5.50. So 2.2 divided by 5.5. If you do, it still comes how much? It still comes 0.40. Original was also 0.40. Alright? Able to understand? So if you add a constant percentage or subtract a constant percentage, ratio will not undergo any change. When I say percentage, the other way of calling percentage is proportion. Alright? Proportion. So same percentage, same proportion, ratio does not change. I will give you another half a minute. Please write these conclusion. Done? Please remember this. Whenever we are looking at any question, we are going to look upon this ratio. How does ratio behave? Now let's go to the next formula. Next formula. Break-even point. Break-even point. This is the last formula to understand the entire concept. I'm not going to teach you any more formula. We are going to understand this formula, and through this formula we are going to understand everything else for today's lecture. What is break-even point? You know the formula. Break-even point can be calculated in units. It can also be calculated in rupees. So let's talk about rupees. break even point in rupees. So is equals to total fixed cost. The word total is very, very important. Why? I will tell you. And here the answer has to be in rupees. So remember, it will be PV ratio. If the answer has to be in rupees, it will be PV ratio, or you know, PV ratio can also be called contribution ratio. Alright. So formula is total fixed cost divided by PV ratio or contribution ratio. If the same thing has to be calculated in units, the formula would become total fixed cost divided by instead of contribution ratio, it is in units, U for unit, so it will be contribution per unit. Alright, per unit. Now question is, what is break even point? Break even point gives you which number? Does it give you a profit number or does it give you a sales number? Remember, everything here when we talk about, we are talking about sales number only. Whether when we call margin of safety, break even point, shutdown point, all these indifference point, all these point gives you one number called sales. Now the question is, it can give you sales in units or it can give you sales in rupees, but it is only going to give you sales number. Alright. Now, so break even point in rupees and break even point in units formula is same. First, what is the significance of the word total? It means total fixed cost. What does total fixed cost means? Fixed cost can be divided into so many different kinds and types of fixed cost, such as avoidable fixed cost, unavoidable fixed cost, incremental fixed cost. There are many types of fixed cost. We are going to take all of them together. All right. So whether it is avoidable, unavoidable, sunk fixed cost, or cash fixed cost, non-cash fixed cost, all that fixed cost will be taken together because formula clearly says total fixed cost. All right. Divided by PV ratio. Let's calculate this for year 1 and year 2. I want you also to calculate. Let's calculate break even point for year 1 and year 2. After that, we are going to write certain conclusions. So for year 1, my break even point is how much? Suppose we are calculating in rupees. It is total fixed cost divided by contribution ratio. If you want in rupees, how much is the total fixed cost? 40,000, if you remember, was the total fixed cost. And how much was the contribution ratio? 40%. So contribution ratio is 40%. How much we get? We get 1 lakh. If you look at break even point for year 2, my total fixed cost was same, 40,000. Suppose the question tells you break even point for year 2. So we are going to calculate for year 2 again. Answer is 2 minutes from now I will give you that answer. So divided by 40%, how much do we get? So we get another 100,000 rupees. If you look at break even point for year 1 and year 2, both break even point are exactly the same. Is it changing? Answer is no, it is not changing. If you want to calculate in units also, there are two formula. One is the formula that I have just mentioned. Another formula is break even sales divided by selling price per unit. If you do, you will get break even point in units. So another formula is break even point in units is equals to nothing but break even point in rupees divided by selling price per unit. This is the third formula. You don't need to memorize, you just need to understand the formula. I'm sure you will remember this. How much is the break even point in rupees? 100,000 divided by selling price is 100. So you get how much? You get 1000 units. Year 2 also, if you calculate, you will get exactly same 1000 units only. So we have got break even point for year 1. We have got break even point for year 2. Now let's write concepts. Let's write concepts or important points to remember. Important points to remember. Point number A. Break-even point is assumed remain constant year on year. First listen to me, understand it, then we are going to write it. First listen to me. Break-even point is assumed to remain constant. So if the question tells you break-even point for year 1 is this and does not mention anything about year 2, remember in year 2 also it is going to remain the same. It is not going to change at all. Alright, because that is the first assumption. So break-even point is assumed to remain constant year on year. So first year if you have calculated, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, in all the years it is going to remain the same. Next, point number B. Break-even point changes only under the following circumstances. Point number 1, subpoint number 1, when total word is very important here, when total fixed cost changes. Subpoint number 2, when PV ratio or contribution ratio changes. And all of you know when will PV ratio change. So I am not writing again point here, PV ratio changes when selling price per unit changes, variable cost per unit changes, or both changes but in different proportion. I am not going to write. So you know when PV ratio will change. If nothing is mentioned, PV ratio is assumed to remain constant, and that is why I have taken same PV ratio here even if question did not mention it, because it is assumed to remain constant. Similarly, fixed cost is also assumed to remain constant. That is why we have taken fixed cost also 40,000. Third, break-even point does not change In other words, break-even point does not change with the change in changes in sales quantity or the volume of sales. For example, in year 1 we have 1000 units sold. In year 2 we had 1200 units sold. But did break-even point change? Answer is not at all. Break-even point did not change at all. Alright? Done. So break-even point is also done. Next important point. One last point I want to tell you. Break-even point gives you which information? It gives you sales information. So that point also I want to mention here, and two more points I will write here. Break-even point gives what? Two more important points I want to write. So point number E, at break even point. This is very, very important. At break even point, point number 1, when your sales is exactly equals to break even point, or at break even point, or what we can write, when sales is equals to break even point. That is what we call at break even point. 3 very, very important points. First, all of you know, total profit, not profit per unit, total profit is equals to 0. This is one point which all of you know. Next point which I want you to know is total contribution is equals to total fixed cost. You will say, sir, this also we know. Total contribution is equals to total fixed cost. Of course, you know. Good. Third and very, very important point which we will use, which most of you may not click, but I want it to click in essay question. Total sales is equals to total cost. This is the last point which most people are not able to recollect while solving essay question. There is one essay question where we need this information, but at that point of time this thought does not come. I want this thought to come. So please remember, at break even point, or when sales is equals to break even point, we know total profit is 0. That we know. Second important point, total contribution is equals to total fixed cost. Third and very, very important point is total sales is equals to total cost. Alright, so these 3 important points I want all of you to remember. Now, if you want to write, I can give you just another 45 seconds. You can copy all this in case you have not copied. 45 seconds, please copy it. All right, fine. Let's go on to the next point. Let's go on to the next point, next concept, and the last concept for today. What is the concept? Sales to earn desired profit. All right. So we are going to learn this last concept for today. Sales to earn desired profit. This concept will be used in lot of decision making and also in budget topic. This formula, very, very important formula. So sales to earn desired profit. Now here confusion starts. What is the confusion? The desired profit sometimes can be given to you. Desired profit, I am writing it as DP. The DP can be given to you as an amount. Like your boss comes to you and says, I want the company to earn 10,000 rupees. That's it. It has just told an amount. The second type of boss may not tell you 10,000 rupees. It will tell you, I want to earn 10%. Now, in both cases, your calculation will completely change. How and all I will tell you. So the next is, here desired profit is given as a percentage of sales amount, or just as a percentage. I want 10% profit. In that case, how do we calculate this? This is sometimes is also called as target sales. So when we have sales to earn desired profit, we sometimes also refer to it as target sales. Now, how do you calculate this? So first one, sales to earn desired profit. All right, when desired profit is mentioned as an amount. Formula is total fixed cost divided by contribution ratio. You will say, sir, this is a break-even point formula. Yes, this is a break-even point formula. And what you need to do, you need to just increase this line and write on numerator plus desired profit if it is given as an amount. If it is given as an amount. But what do you do when desired profit is given as a percentage? So sales to earn desired profit, where desired profit is given as a percentage. Percentage always means percentage of sales only. All right. So in that case, you write the same break-even point formula. What is the formula? Total fixed cost divided by contribution ratio. You write contribution ratio. You are comfortable calling it PV ratio. It's okay. So contribution ratio. Now, you just need to do opposite of everything that you have done so far. What is the opposite of plus? Minus. What is the opposite of numerator? Denominator. So, increase the line. You did plus here. So, we will do minus. We wrote on the numerator. We are going to write on the denominator. So, we are going to write on the denominator minus desired profit percentage. Minus desired profit percentage, just opposite of what we did earlier. We did plus, we are going to write minus. We did on the numerator, we are going to write on the denominator. All right. Now, let's take up a question. Let's take up a question. Company says, I want to earn desired profit of how much? Desired profit, company expects to earn 8,000. So 8,000 rupees is the desired profit that the company wants to earn. This is one way of telling this. The other way of telling this is, I want to earn a desired profit of 6.6667 percentage. Percentage means percentage of sales. And sales is not given. So don't think that, okay, yeah, if it is mentioned 6.667% of sales, then I will multiply with sales. Sales is not given. Sales is something that you need to calculate. All right. So don't think sales will be given. Sales is the thing that you need to calculate. So it will never be given. Question is, how do we calculate this? So let's take up question. We know sales to earn desired profit. What is the formula? Sales to earn desired profit. We know formula. And this is given as an amount. So we know the formula. Total fixed cost plus desired profit when it is given as an amount divided by contribution ratio or PV ratio. How much is the total fixed cost? So total fixed cost, first is for which year are we calculating? So we are calculating it for year 1. So total fixed cost is 40,000 plus desired profit is 8,000 rupees. Divided by PV ratio or contribution ratio. Remember, we will use contribution ratio if we want answer in rupees. If we want answer in units, then we are going to use contribution per unit. That I am sure you remember. So it will become 48,000 on the numerator divided by 40%. How much do we get? If you calculate it, we are going to get 120,000 rupees. 1,20,000. And if you look at the main question, in which year I had 1,20,000? In year 2, I had 1,20,000. And in which year I had a profit of 8,000? In year 2, we had a profit of 8,000, which means if my total sales is 120,000, I will earn a profit of 8,000. And when did it happen? It happened in year 2. Year 1, we were at break-even point. But suppose the question told that I don't want 8,000, I want 6.667% of what? Of sales. So first, we need to know the formula. What is the formula? When it is given as a percentage, the formula is total fixed cost divided by contribution ratio. And instead of plus, it will become minus. Instead of numerator, it will become denominator. So minus desired profit percentage is equals to how much? Total fixed cost 40,000 divided by contribution ratio was 40% minus desired profit percentage is 6.6667%. Both are in percentage. In calculator, take up calculator. In calculator, whenever there is a calculation in the denominator, we will always do denominator calculation. So type in calculator 40 minus 6.6667 equals. So you get 33.3333. Now, without touching any additional button, just press the numerator 40,000 divided by GT divided by GT percentage divided by GT percentage. You will directly get some number. And how much you are getting? You are getting 1,20,000.12 or something you will get. So in other words, you are getting 1,20,000. Now we have to check whether we are getting 6.667% or not. How to check? So we are just checking our answer. Checking answer. How to check that? So we can check rupees 1,20,000 multiplied by 6.6667%. And if you multiply this, you will get 8,000 rupees. Means you should have a sales of 1,20,000 to earn a profit of 6.667% on sales. And what is 6.667% of sales? After calculating sales, then only we will be able to know this 8,000 rupees. All right. So this is all for today's class. Very, very basics. Another 1 hour I need for your basics. Don't think that we have landed up wasting 2.5 hours learning basics. This is an investment. This is an investment. Anything, even if I am teaching you tiniest thing, learn it gracefully because it is needed, and that is why I am teaching. If it is not needed, I will not teach you at all. All right. So please have this trust. Sometime I am sure we will build our trust in each other and make this learning process really, really awesome and beautiful. With that, I will wrap up today's class. I will just leave one moment for you in case you have some questions. All right. Any question, guys? Can I have a word from you? Was it interesting, boring, very basic? Can I have a written word from you? Enjoyed, boring, very, very basic I covered upon? You can just type. All right, but I want initially, I'll tell you just 2 more minutes. I'll tell you initially you may run out of patience with my classes because I will cover very smallest point. And since you have studied some of these in your inter, you will think that all these I know. I definitely know you have studied. I know. I teach CA inter. All right. And I've been teaching for more than a decade now. More than 10 to 12 years almost. But I want you not to lose patience. That's it. I will tell you. Do not lose patience. These are very important concepts, and that is why I am touching upon this, because the gap between your CA inter and here is very vast, and that needs to be filled. That gap needs to be filled first. Second thing is, many times you have understood that concept in CA inter also, you remember also, but sometimes application becomes difficult. I want you to think about application of these knowledge in CA final. I know the formula, I remember the formula, but at the right time it will not come. I want you to recollect this so that at the right time, at the right place, this formula should click you that you, okay, I think it is talking about this. And then we are going to cover it up. All right. So with that, just remain connected for just one more class, and I'm sure you will understand everything. That is my promise. Trust me, at the end of this CA final lecture, each one of you, I will make you fall in love with this subject. The way I love this subject, I will make each one of you fall in love with this subject, because unless you love it, unless you like the subject, it is difficult to score in the subject. And is this subject worth loving? Answer is yes, it is worth loving. Why? Not just because you want to pass CA, but because you want to become an intelligent chartered accountant. And intelligent chartered accountant should be able to play with numbers, should know accounting properly, should know costing properly, because that's how a company is run. Taxes and all that today, you know, even B-commerce are doing. All GST return, B-commerce are filing. Yeah, all income tax return, B-commerce are doing. CAs have to do much better job, and that is about broadly running a company. Costing is one of the backbone to run a company at a larger scale. All right. So please remain connected. We will catch up tomorrow. This is Irfat signing off for today. Bye-bye. Take care.